So
This has
I
I'm
guess
never,
glad you noticed it now.
Luke. This has
I,
never
I,
happened to us.
That's the
I,
first time it's ever happened.
I guess I'm to blame for that.
Welcome back to another exciting edition of Rake Position. Take two and action. We've been here for an hour, and Joe forgot to hit the record button. But
That's actually
I'm still the host.
that's actually a responsibility carried by all members. Luke, you get an exception.
The
Uh,
Appreciate that.
groundskeeper's got to
that's
keep the home tidy.
33% my fault.
Joe
Repeating, of
has
course.
one job on this pod is to literally hit record. That's the only
My
thing he
name's Joe,
does
the
every week.
groundskeeper. I would like to state we have a shoe line coming out. It's called FP Divers. It's for athletes and divers. So keep an eye out for that.
Oh
I hear it
man,
works good for running pickles too.
what?
Sandlot, guys, come on. Luke got it.
Oh, I'm just so
I
distracted
got
by
it, but it
Did
was
we?
so
Did
bad I
we?
didn't want
Biddy
to
the Jet
acknowledge
puts the
it.
PF Flyers on first to go get the ball from the
Did we hit
beast.
record? This is live.
Take three.
I'm Jay Lee the Rover.
And I'm Luke, the Cubs correspondent.
Yes, that is not Corey, but he's got the same ugly hat.
Ooh.
We have a lot of
That was not on
trade.
the first take.
Yeah, this is good. We have a lot of trade news, and it all happened to be around the Cubbies, so we brought in a sub-Cub correspondent, Luke Erickson. He was one of our GMs for the first annual. It's going to be annual. I'm going to cancel it. We're not going to do this again. First annual Rake Position Fantasy Baseball League.
That's definitely coming back, listeners.
I got dead last, but Luke's got some bragging rights. So Luke, tell us about your team just a little bit.
Yeah, I got the runner-up trophy, if there is such a thing. And yeah, it was thanks to trade with Aaron where I got Gunnar Henderson and for a box of baseballs. And then I think there
I
was
smell collusion.
Yeah, I pulled off a couple of trades. I pulled off one with Corey. I traded him because my first round pick was Corbin Carroll, and he was brutal for the first part of the year. And so I traded him, and I think in that trade I got Tyler Glass now and a couple other pieces that ended up Riley Green, a couple pieces that ended up being really solid. So
You know what?
yeah,
You know what Ricky Bobby says, right, Luke?
if you ain't first, you're last. So yeah,
Okay.
I'm right there with you guys. So.
I get first round pick next year, right? No lottery, pinball, ping pong ball, wonton tacos.
Everybody gets a first round pick. Are you saying
I'm
first
at
overall
first
pick?
overall.
I get the
overall,
first
yeah.
25 picks.
Wow.
We need
All
to
right, so-
we,
yeah, go
we
ahead.
we need to try to maybe rent out a Chuck E. Cheese or something and do that thing live.
Little cloud buckets. So we always like to ask our GM buddies, why are you so romantic about baseball? So baseball and the Cubs, how'd you get there?
Yeah, my father and my grandfather both huge baseball fans. My mom is originally from Ohio, so my grandfather out there, he was around the Cleveland area, and growing up in the '90s, he would send me like newspaper clippings of those great Indians teams with Albert Bell and um, yeah, just those amazing teams, and so that got me into it. My dad was a huge White Sox fan, so he was big into Frank Thomas. I remember uh, just kind of like inching my way when I was like 6 or 7 years old. I squirmed my way up to the front and got him a Frank Thomas signed baseball that he still has, and so.
That's cool.
But yeah, as a contrarian and someone who's been ornery all my life, I became a Cubs fan because my dad was a Sox fan, and yeah,
I've got a picture
I
with Frank Thomas. His statue.
yeah yeah uh, just the the broad shoulders and
Who
like the skinny legs or something like that. I can't. Yeah, I know what you're talking about, Jaylee.
Who do you think comes out of a room with Jim Tomey fighting Frank Thomas?
Oof.
Might be the
I
two
mean,
nicest big guys. I don't know if they come out holding hands. Probably.
yeah,
Probably too.
the
Have I told my
Peoria
Jim?
Pounder.
I'm making him fight.
Have I told my Jim Tomei story about the FCA banquet? I'm going
Did you
to.
fight it? Did you fight him at a
Did you
Christian
fight him?
event? I don't
Yes,
think so.
he was him and Mike Matheny were at a FCA event in Quincy about 10 years ago,
I was
and they had
supposed to go to that.
they had a local politician like emceeing the event, and they ended up doing a raffle for a gun safe that I think they both signed as well. There's a bunch of rednecks, you know.
Signed gun safe.
Yeah, it's a bunch of rednecks. You know, it went for I don't know thousands of dollars. But the politician, the entire this is like an hour and a half event. He probably said Jim Tomei's name 100 times, but had no idea how to pronounce it. So he was Jim Thome the entire night. Everybody else there's baseball fans, you know, except the one politician who's in charge of talking. And it was Jim Thome. Jim Thome's going to help us. Jim Thome. I was like, come on, this is like the guest of honor. You don't know what you're saying. So there you go.
Yeah,
Jim
that's
Jim
rule
Thome.
number one. So when I was in high school, I had no athletic ability, but I loved the game of baseball. So I was actually the PA announcer for our high school team. And so every time that like before I would announce a game, you have to go to the opposing team's like dugout and let me get the pronunciation for, everybody's name. And so, um, yeah, I'm sure there was a couple of times that they just fed me a wrong name and then were like
Oh yeah.
snickering in there. But yeah.
We
Luke,
had
what
like an
would your
all. Oh, go ahead, sorry.
Luke, what would your walk-up song be, and what would your bullpen music be?
Yeah.
We talk about this a
Um,
lot.
I'm too sexy. I'm too sexy.
yeah, I don't walk up would be tough, but I love the Enter Sandman was always like, coming out of the bullpen, you can't get much better than
Was
that.
that
So
Hoffman?
I think it was, yeah.
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 Wait,
Yeah.
that was Hoffman? What was Rivera then?
What was it? It was one of those two.
Mm,
I think it was
Rivera
Rivera.
had Metallica play at his last game, so I'm pretty
okay.
sure.
Maybe
Yeah,
it was, yeah,
it might have been
Mo.
Mariano.
Got you.
But
Sweet.
yeah.
Well, our first question for our Cubs correspondent on the offseason hot stove. Cubs are busy bringing in one outfielder, sending out another. So I want to kick it first to our Cardinals guys to see how they feel about the arch rivals making some moves and what the NL Central looks like to them before we kick it to our Cubs correspondent. So,
Joe,
Jay Lee, Joe, what do you think about the Cubs
Who's going?
maneuvering?
I'll kick it to you, Joe.
Kick it to me. All right. What do I think? I, I'll first say this is, man, this is probably the first off season in a long time where it's just like, I don't want to say who cares, but like we all know the Cardinals aren't going to be at the top of the division, so it has a little bit of that feeling. But I still will never lose the feeling of wow, do I hope the Cubs fail at whatever they're trying to do. Um, I mean, I can tell Luke's a real fan, and I can appreciate the fanship, if that's a word. Um, I can appreciate that out of other people because I have that as well, and I have teams that sometimes aren't good for long periods of time, and when you stick with them, you always appreciate that. But I still hope the Cubs fail at everything. So, as they make these moves, is it enough to win the division? I don't know. I guess we'll see what the rest of the offseason brings. Will they have the mindset of kind of the Cardinal mindset the past few years of, hey, let's do maybe just enough to win it, and then fail? Or will they, keep going a little more all in and really become the favorites? Because I think right now, even though I don't know how, because Milwaukee's awful as I look at their team, Milwaukee probably still has to be the favorite because they won so many games last year. But
They have some
they,
voodoo magic that they're always up there.
they must. They thought it was Craig Counsell, but it must be somebody else over there because they lost some pieces.
Bernie the
But
Brewer.
what do you think, Jaylee?
Yeah, real quick, and then we'll kick it over to our Cub correspondent here. For me, you never want to see your division get better when your team stays the same. But I think we talked about it when we thought we were recording the first time. Kyle Tucker is one of those players that he looks like a Chicago Cub to me. Um, he is very similar. I
Big,
think when we
hairy,
look,
got big balls.
yeah, exactly like a Cub and Aaron. But I mean, we talk about
If if you know, you know. And
yeah.
unfortunately, we know.
If you talk about them not even trying for Soto, I think this is a perfect player for them to go get. And to what we've seen, like the stats are kind of similar and probably a better defender. So I don't know. It's like I said, you never want to see your division rivals get better, but I think this is a move for the Cubs. I hope they can extend him because I think he's a perfect piece. I'll kick it to you, Luke.
Yeah, so I think coming into the off season, I was pretty I was probably as pessimistic as I've ever been as a Cubs fan. Just because over the last few years, ever since 2018, um, when they signed Yu Darvish, that was the last time they really. I mean, you can argue that Dansby Swanson, but it felt like that was like they
Thank
had
you.
to do that. But those were the really Dansby's been the only impact signing that they've made since Yu Darvish, other than, again, Bellinger a little bit. But he was coming off of that was more of a reclamation signing the first time. Um, and the second time it was like, oh crap, we better if we want to like tread water. They hadn't made really a move that they were kind of pushing their chips in. And just the fact that they have probably the third highest revenue in all of baseball, but the ninth highest payroll last year. They have the highest ticket price, but coming into the offseason when you have a generational talent that's a free agent, you don't have to give up anything other than money. And they said to everyone, we're not even going to be in the negotiations with him. And just as a Cubs fan, like that just turned me off. I said, then why would I give you any money? Why would I continue to invest in this team? And but then, at the winter meetings when it's there started to be rumblings that, hey, we could potentially be in on Kyle Tucker. That made me change my tune because Kyle Tucker is every bit of the at least performer to this point as Juan Soto has been. And he's a winner. He's never been on a losing team in the major leagues. He's been on the Astros this entire time, and he's kind of been an unsung hero. But man, that guy delivers. If you just look at his stat sheet, it's 5 WAR, 5 WAR. This past year was only under that because he played half the season, and he still had 4.7. Like, just an incredible talent. And so to be able to acquire one of the 10 best players in the league. That's huge, and that I think got a lot of Cubs fans' attention, and turned the the tune that you heard a lot of Cubs fans now being optimistic about this next year. Um, that we coming into the season, maybe I'm skipping a little ahead of here, Aaron, but they coming into this offseason, Cody Bellinger had an opt out. And I think the Cubs really thought that he was going to take that and wanted to allocate those funds, that 27.5 million, elsewhere. And when he opted in, they were like, oh crap, like what do we do? And so they had been looking to move him since the beginning of the offseason. Now that they get Tucker, now there's not really a place. You could move some pieces around and you could have kept it, but it would have made some iffy defensive spots. Um, with Bush at third base or potentially second base. He's not great at either of those. So you had Bellinger's expendable. You trade him for, as you guys said in your group chat, a mustard sandwich, right?
That's
Correct.
Um,
right.
And so uh really what it is, it's freeing up 25 million because they pitched in 5 million, but it's spread out over 2 years. So you gain 25 million back this year to be able to spend. So you need to allocate that elsewhere. And I think that's what Cubs fans are saying. There have to be more moves, probably one starting pitcher and at least two impact relievers to be able to make this a team that is uh, a 90 win team on paper. You have to go into the season projected to win about 90 games to really feel like this is a playoff team. They're not there yet, but they have the biggest piece already in Tucker.
I know Jared's got a couple follow-up questions for you, but I just want to share what Corey said when we found out he wasn't going to be on tonight. I asked him to share his thoughts about the Cubs trades before we knew you were coming on, but I thought it was pretty funny because it matches what you're saying. Tucker is better than what we had. Happy to have him. Cam Smith seems great, but you never know what you've got with young guys. But we have too many outfielders now, so I'm more curious to see what the return of the extra outfielder will be. Cubs aren't World Series contenders still, so if they don't do anything else, specifically adding pitching, adding Tucker was dumb. And then as soon as he sent that, like 5 minutes later, Bellinger gets traded. He goes, "Well, we're about to see what the extra outfielder gets us." And then we get a series of memes and faces. So Corey's on board with you. He'd rather have Tucker over Bellinger any day, but he's pessimistic that that 25 million in savings is going to be reinvested wisely into the team. So
And I agree with that. The Ricketts have been cheap ever since 2018, and so like the fact that they have 50 million until they hit the competitive balance. I know they like to go into the year with 8 to 10 million
sure.
in, you know, to be able to play with. So essentially $40 million that you can use the rest of the offseason. I don't think they're going to use all of that.
Yeah.
If I'm being honest, and
Before
that
Jared, oh, go, sorry.
oh, and that ticks me off as a Cubs fan. Like you did just get Tucker, so you should go out and get some people to be able to use that 40 million.
Sure. Before Jared gives you a follow up question, as a non NL Central fan here, I do think the bar being set so low for the last 3 or 4 years has kept these teams comfortable and doing the bare minimum.
Yep.
Like
I agree.
small market teams like the Brewers should not be running away with the division. Like the Brewers lost their all-star shortstop and trade away their best pitcher. Last year, the pitcher, this year, the shortstop, and they're still the favorite.
Well, in this year, they're elite closer, right?
Yeah, and they trade away their closer this year. Like they're taking pieces away. Cardinals are retooling. Pirates and Reds are trying to add pieces, but nobody wants to really play there. And then so here, Cubs make one big move, and I hope
And
they don't
that's
sit there and think that's it. We made the biggest move, so we're okay. No, they need to keep going.
and that's what's really frustrated me as a Cubs fan. Like I want to be the bully on the street, right? Like they we have one advantage over every other team in the division, and that's the financial, you know, power that we have, and we just have not utilized that over the last few years. And that's frustrating to see a small market team like the Brewers win and win handily when we have the opportunity to go out and get some of these players that they just won't or can't. And the Cubs haven't until now.
Looking at the Tucker trade, why is this a money move by Houston as well? Like, why are they even trading this guy?
Well, yeah,
They're
I
not
think the thinking
small market.
is he's due to hit free agency in a year, and they just saw a comparable player in Juan Soto get 765 million, and they're thinking, well, we're not even going to come close to that. And they've had this competitive window where they've continued to not do this over the it's like Correa hit free agency, Bregman hit free agency, all of these players, Springer hit free agency. So that you've gotten all of these guys who they've essentially gotten nothing for. And so they didn't want to do that with probably their best asset in Tucker. And they're trying to thread the needle because Isak Paredes is going to kill it at
Mhm.
Minute Maid. Like just with his pull approach, I think he would have hit like 8 or 9 more home runs last year if he was in a Houston uniform, just because of the short porch. And they're getting a long term. There was the Cubs' #1 pick last year in Cam Smith. So I think that's the thinking of, if we're not going to be able to sign this guy, we might as well get something in return for him. And Paredes and Smith and Hayden Wesneski it's a solid return.
Yeah, I
Um,
think Astros have a lot of top level talent, but still had some many holes. They need that third baseman, or at least a corner infield bat. They needed back in the rotation. Um, and plus they got a nice prospect out of it. So
yeah, he automatically becomes their #1 prospect.
yeah.
He was the
And he's not
Cubs'
far
seventh.
off. Yeah, he's
Yeah,
not far off. He's a year away, maybe.
yeah.
So
Yeah, it's a good trade for the Astros for what they're trying to do. It's hard to say it's a good trade when you give up one of the 10 best players in all of baseball, but they got good return for him.
yeah. Because Valdez is a free agent after this year.
Yep,
Jordan's got 2 more years of team control, I think.
something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so they're running out of time on a lot of these guys. So they had to diversify a little bit. Jared, you got a follow up question for him?
Yeah, just a real quick question here for you, Luke. I just want to put the GM hat on you. Like I said, you get a call from the Cubs saying, "Hey, we had to let our GM go. We need you to come in and fix this franchise to compete for a World Series this year. We need to know what your top 3 moves are going to be."
Yeah, I think so. Clearly, it's one more piece to the starting rotation and 2 bullpen arms that are high leverage. I think for the rotation piece, so they've been talking all week about Jesus Luzardo, who would be a 4th left-hander in their rotation. Um, what I like about Luzardo and what I would want if I'm the GM is I want something different than what we have as far as profile. I'm not so concerned about the handedness. I just want somebody who throws hard and gets strikeouts, because what they've got right now are more finesse pitchers, guys who maybe put the ball in play a little bit more. Your Jamison Tyone, and to an extent, I mean, Imanaga had some really nice strikeout games, but he only throws like 92, and with a ton of crazy movement. Same thing for Justin Steele, really great pitcher, but he's not going to blow you away with a ton of strikeouts. They need a different look in their rotation. They need someone who has some top end velocity and the ability to miss bats. And I think Jesus Luzardo brings that. Same thing with Luis Castillo, who's a little bit older. His velocity is starting to tick down at 32, but he would he's striking out guys at a higher rate than any of the current Cubs starters, save maybe Imanaga last year. And so that's what I need. You need a top half of the rotation starter who's going to miss bats. I think both Luzardo and Castillo bring that. So getting one of them, Luzardo, they're looking more for. I think James Triantos, one of the Cubs like #5 prospect, is what they're looking for. Um, whereas the Mariners are looking more for a major league bat like Nico Horner. I don't really want to give up Horner at this point, so that's why I would lean a little bit more towards Luzardo. Um, and because you can't hoard all of your prospects, that's why I love that they threw in Cam Smith to push it over for the Tucker trade. Like you had 8 top 100 guys, the most in all of baseball. Not all of those guys can come up and contribute to your team. The way they can contribute to your team is via trade. And so that's why I like that Hoyer gave up Smith for Tucker. That's why I like that they're talking about giving up Triantos, even if it's only for 2 years of Luzardo. I'm fine with that. Then you need to use some of the financial flexibility that you got from Bellinger to go out and get a Tanner Scott, to go out and get a Kirby Yates, to go out and get a Carlos Estevez. I think you need one of those guys who has proven that he can close down games instead of relying on like a Porter Hodge who looked good last year, but I mean, that was the first big league experience that he had gotten was at the tail end of last year. You cannot go into a win now year relying on a guy who, just pitched major league innings at the end of last year. I love Porter Hodge as a seventh or eighth inning guy, not as my closer. So get me a Tanner Scott, get me uh, Kirby Yates or Carlos Estevez, and maybe two of those guys to just in case one of them gets hurt, you've got another guy to plug in there. You've got to push your projections, your steamer projections, your those projections up to 90 wins. Like get me at the 90 win mark, then I feel good about this being a playoff team because the way I look at it is if you get in, anything can happen, right? Look at 2023 with the Rangers and the Diamondbacks. Like those two teams were not projected. Throw around your financial weight like the Yankees and the Dodgers and the Mets, and get your team up to the point where they're definitely a playoff team and they have a puncher's chance once they get there.
I like it. Higher.
So yeah, that's some moves that Luke as a new GM would make. Another part to this story that wasn't said was the Ricketts actually sold the team to me, and I've now become the owner, and my mandate is we slash payroll to 120 million. So I'm sorry, but you got to make
He's
some more
actually
moves.
trading Tucker tomorrow. Those who can't sign him. Yeah, I'm looking at the Cubs prospects. I knew they had a deep farm. I'm wondering if you couldn't get Castillo. I like Castillo better than Luzardo, just healthier, proven track
I
record.
agree. Yeah.
I'm wondering if Owen Casey, however you say his last name, or I don't know who this guy is, Moises Ballesteros, both
He's
lefty bats that are ready for the bigs. So
you love Ballesteros because he's essentially Kirk from the Blue Jays. He's
nice. Yeah, it
short,
says he's
squatty.
5'8", 195.
Yeah, he's 5'8". He's chunky, but man, that dude can hit. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think he's gonna like stick at catcher, and so it's really like he's a DH. But that dude can absolutely
They have him listed at
smack
first
it.
base catcher, so I wonder how his first base went because the Mariners need a first base bat or an outfield bat. Like I got Victor Robles and Mitch Haniger and Mitch Garver for right field DH. Throwing in a lefty bat, I wonder if you get him from there, or maybe dangle Kate Horton in a trade for Castillo, so they don't lose their depth there. But yeah, I think you're onto it. I think the Cubs can get a front half rotation guy and load up
And
the pen.
another guy, a former Cubs prospect that I would love, but
Matt
I don't
Burton
see it happening, is Dylan Cease, who is on the market from the Padres with only 1 year left. I honestly believe that the Orioles are going to get him. I think you
seems
send.
like an Orioles deal.
Oh yeah, you send Keston Herstad out to San Diego. I think that lends themselves to 1 year of Cease, and the Orioles are back up, fighting with the Yankees at the top of the AL East. I think that's a perfect marriage.
Yeah, I think you're on something there. All right. Any other Cubs talk questions, guys? Are you tired of hearing about the Cubs being more aggressive?
Never.
All right. Well, let's move on to some free agent fun. And Jared, I'll kick it to you as we talk free agent bats.
All right, I'm gonna go out of order here.
All right,
I know
sounds good.
the list is like I got Bregman, Alonso, and Santander, but I'm gonna go Alonso first because I think this is the easiest one. I think if you're the Mets, you can't let this guy walk because then your lineup is even worse and than you did when you got Soto and Francisco Lindor, and then who else? Exactly, nobody. So I think the Mets have to find a way to keep him, to give Soto some protection in that lineup. Um, Before I move on, I'll get your guys' predictions to see if we're all on the same page here. So I'll kick it to Joe.
What's the question? Where's Alonso going?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean he's kind of been a favorite there, hasn't he? I mean, I never hear like, oh, the New York's trying to run this guy out of town. And they're definitely not running out of cash. So I had him going back to the Mets as well. I just I see that happening.
Luke?
Yeah, the Mets make a lot of sense just because, just like you said, why you can't sign Soto and then not build around him. Lindor is a fantastic piece, but you need more than that. And Steve Cohen has showed like he doesn't care. He will go billions over the luxury tax if he needs to. And you know what? That's awesome. I would love it if I was a Mets fan. If you had an owner like that that said, "Screw it, like I want to win."
Heck yeah.
Um, so that's awesome. I do think that the polar bear goes back there just because you look at the other options that he has. It's the Yankees maybe, but they just got Bellinger, so that's a he Bellinger could play first base. Um, the Giants, but the Giants have a prospect. Their best one, Bryce Eldridge, I think is his name, is a first base prospect who's not that far away.
Yeah, he'll be
So
up this year at some point.
I just don't see another place that makes a ton of sense that's going to give him the money that he wants. So he should stay.
Corey submitted the Mets as well. You know me, guys. I can't go with the crowd. So
Right.
I am throwing you a curveball here. I'm calling back the spirit of Jason Worth, and I think this is a great play for the Nationals. I think if the Mets were going to sign him already, Cohen would have signed him already. Mark Vientos just had a great full season, had some big homers in the playoffs, and I think they would prefer him at first base over third. Plus, he's probably better defensively than Alonso. And then they've got Brett Beatty and Little Acuna to play third if need be. So
Well,
I see
that
the
was a hanging breaking ball.
I see the Nationals overpaying to get Alonso to come there because they're going to be fun to watch the next couple years with all these young position players coming up, but they have nobody at first base. Like Dominic Smith played first last year. This year, I don't even know who's slated. I think Juan Yepes is right now their top their depth chart at first base.
Beast.
Joey Meneses.
Joey Meneses isn't on the roster anymore. I
I
don't
know,
know.
I know. I was just throwing his name out
Yeah,
there from the
yeah.
last year or
Juan
two.
Yepes, a former Brave farmhand, former Cardinal standout slugger. So I knew we'd appreciate that. But I think if they go all in with Alonso, put him in the middle with Woods and Cruz and all these other young bats that they've got coming, I think they could have some fun. So that's where I'm going. And they have
Okay,
no, their
cool.
payroll's so low right now that the learners have spent in the past and are willing to spend if it makes the team better. So I go Alonso to the Nationals.
True. All right. Let's go to Mr. Anthony Santander.
We knew this was going to happen for Baltimore, where eventually they weren't going to pay some of these players. He's one that I wish would kind of stay in Baltimore because I think he's a good fit there. But you got so many prospects there, and you can't sign everybody to stay. So, um, I when I made this list, I wrote down the Yankees before the Bellinger trade. But now I'm curious because you're moving Judge to right.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like Cody's gonna play center.
Mm-hmm.
Do you bring the Martian to play left, or do you keep him? Because then you have to have Stanton DH. So that made me think like, okay, I'm gonna cross out the Yankees. He's not going there anymore. So I actually put, and this is a curveball. I put the Guardians
Of the Galaxy?
of the
I like it.
Galaxy. He joins Groot.
I am Groot.
I think this he's a good fit for a team that usually doesn't spin big.
That's a
Um,
good call.
and I think the AL Central, kind of like the NL Central, it's kind of up for grabs. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
obviously, I think we said this last, except for the White Sox, you can cross them off immediately. Um, but I think around the players with Jose Ramirez, um, Naylor, all those guys, I think he'd be a solid fit in Cleveland. So let's go. Let's kick it to Luke this time.
Oh,
You know,
thank you,
this is
because I'm
one.
still trying to figure out where he's going.
Yeah, I was really struggling here for a minute. I think there's two places that intrigue me. If you want a realistic one, I'll say the Blue Jays, just because they're trying to throw money at just about everybody and nobody's taking their money. I think Santander is maybe saying, "Sure, I'll take your money," and
Raise
they
your hand if you would ever want to play in Canada, or yeah, I guess in Canada and Toronto. Yeah,
I
nobody's
mean,
raising their hand.
yeah, it really feels like, I mean, they've tried to throw it at Corbin Burns, and who knows? I know he's going to probably be on our list here to talk to, but I would love to fit in Detroit. I think that they're on the precipice of maybe being perennial contenders there in the AL Central. They've got a good young core. What would it look like to have a guy like this who can come out and get you 30, 35 home runs a year for the next 3, 4, 5 years? I would love that fit, but I think it's probably more realistic that he goes to someplace like Toronto.
I like that pick too. That was close for me to picking them as well. But what about you, Aaron?
Corey has him going to the Mariners, but I already got Owen Casey getting traded there for Luis Castillo, so that won't fit in my world. But I like what Luke's saying. I got the Tigers down. Right now, Matt Vierling is projected to start either in the outfield or somewhere. Riley Green, Kerry Carpenter, Parker Meadows, some nice outfield pieces. But if Santander goes there to designate hit or play the outfield, Vierling can be a nice utility guy off the bench instead of expected him to start. So you got Riley Green and Spencer Torkelson. Give them a veteran bat to protect them and carry the team, so those guys don't have to feel all the pressure. And they went crazy on Baez a few years ago. Uh, they've spit in the
Did
past
not work
too.
out.
No,
which
I know.
is which is why I'm a little skeptical that
Yeah,
they go out and do it, because that just blew up in their
but
face.
I've got to think they want to be good this year with Scoble still on the roster. Like they kept him around when everybody was like, we should trade him. So I think they got to go all in and see if they can put something together while Tariq's still there.
Joe,
What player are we talking about again? Still
where
Santander?
where are you at?
Santander. I
Salamander,
like
Are
the
you on this
name for one.
podcast?
I'm here.
did you record?
So let me make sure that thing's still going. I do have weak internet connection. Um, I have the place this guy's going, and I don't want to hear Luke. I can tell you are very baseball intelligent, but you have better tact than Aaron, so it'll probably come from Aaron. I don't want to hear, oh, they've had this guy in their system for 9 years. He's going to be there now. He's a beast. I have him going to. I'm sorry, Aaron. I love you. I'll just get to my answer, huh? He's going to sign with Boston. There, next.
That's a
Why not?
horrible. That's a horrible pick because they've
Why
got
not?
4 outfielders and a
Here
DH
we go.
already.
Here we go. Yeah, the four outfielders, the OPS 660 combined.
Your
All,
rookie of the year
all four
picks
of
up
them?
there still.
There's three outfielders, son.
Duran's a beast. I don't know.
Yeah, Duran's fun. I do think Boston's going to do something at a bat,
Mhm.
and they've
Yeah,
talked
they are. They're
about
adding Santander.
trading everybody.
It's going to be another guy on our list here.
Yeah, probably. Bum bum bum.
All right.
Are you writing down where these are
Yeah,
going,
yeah,
Jared?
yeah. Are we
Yeah,
writing
I
these
am.
down?
I am.
You are?
I got it.
Thank
Yeah.
you. It's usually Corey's job. Should be Luke's job.
No, he's
Spreadsheet
just our
guy.
core. He's just
Gotta-
our correspondent.
you
We
gotta
can't give
earn
him too
your-
many jobs on his first
Yeah.
You
pod.
gotta earn your fee, Luke.
We can't give Joe more than one job because he can't even do that. Hit record.
33% of his job. Anyway,
Repeating,
Alex
of course.
Bregman. I think it was either Luke or Aaron mentioned this about Alonso. If you were going to sign him, you're going to sign this guy already. So he ain't going back to Houston. So we can cross that off. And
What they
then,
offer him, 150 million or something like that.
I don't know.
He's getting more than
Something like that.
Adamas.
Yeah. So I kind of got a scenario here. I wrote the Mariners down,
Mhm.
but I also wrote down Philly. Philly, for whatever reason, wants to get rid of Alec Baum, or at least that's
Yeah,
the
but they
report.
want like the moon for him.
Exactly. So until their price comes down, that ain't gonna happen. But if they end up doing that, I could see Bregman sliding right in to Philly because Philly's another team that ain't worried about spending money either. So, and I think they're desperately, desperately trying to get a ring in the Bryce Harper era, which I
Ain't
would love
gonna
to see
happen.
because
Ain't gonna happen.
we all love Bryce Harper here.
We do.
So between those two teams, my heart is telling me that it's gonna happen in Philly. So Aaron, I'll kick it to you.
That's a great pick, Jaylee.
Yeah, I like it.
Thank you.
I like the Mariners. I just want the Mariners to be good. They've always kind of like been my AL team my whole life, and they're just so close. But they gotta do something smarter. Corey has the Yankees, which I think he
He's
still
dumb.
fits. Third base there at the Yankees, because they still got money to spend.
What about A-Rod?
I have an interesting pick here as well. Like Joe's thinking Boston's going to add. I've got Bregman going to Boston to play second up front. They keep talking like they want Devers to play first or DH, but they've got Cassis and Yoshida clogging those spots up. Cassis, somebody will take Cassis. That dude's a freak
Yeah.
hitter. If they really want to get Devers off of third base, they can move Bregman there. They also have a top prospect coming up. I know Luke knows who that is, Christian Campbell. That's about ready to take over second base. So Bregman go to second for a year, and then maybe go to third if Devers goes to DH or something next year. And who knows?
Trevor Story ever coming
Yeah, if
back?
Trevor Story
He's still
breaks
around.
down again, Campbell will go play shortstop and leave Bregman at second. So I think Bregman in Boston. I think the Boston fans would love him. Kind of like a better version of Pedroia. I think fit up there.
True. Better knees too.
Mhm.
Joe, we are on Alex Bregman.
Alex Bregman. Hmm. Don't worry, I got the landing spot. Somebody sent somebody to the Tigers earlier, but I have this guy going to Detroit
Good fit.
as I at such a rapid pace, it seems unbelievable. Click through Baseball Reference and teams and look at OPSs and see what's low and ages. Seems like he'd be a good fit there. So
Good pick.
All right, Luke, bring
I've
it
got
home.
Boston as well, just because of it's really the park fit, right? Like, just as we talked about Paredes being like fitting like a glove in Houston, so did Bregman for the same reason that they're so pull happy. And the Green Monster it's just like it's calling out Alex Bregman's name. I really think that he would do well there. And then it just gives the Sox more flexibility to go out and move some of these great prospects that they have to maybe they want to um, go out and get a year of Dylan Cease and they want to give up. Maybe that's going to cost them. Christian Campbell or someone like that. So if you sign Bregman, you have the ability to go out and fill some of these other needs. Yeah, and maybe it doesn't cost Campbell, but it maybe costs them Casas, and they can do that whole move there. So they've got a great farm system. They've got a lot of good young players. I think this is an all-in move that kind of gives them some flexibility to fill other needs in the rotation.
Brilliant. Great pick.
nice pick.
Solid.
It's wrong.
But
So I would love to see Seattle sign some hitters, but who's the last person Seattle signed that
They
was
like to
up in the
trade. They don't like to sign. Yeah.
they don't sign.
Well, and I think a lot of it is hitters just looking at it and saying, "Why would I go there and have like my numbers just nosedive?" I
Yeah.
think that was,
If you look at
a lot
Teoscar
of
Hernandez,
yeah,
yeah, it's night and day. Him in Seattle, him not in Seattle.
yeah. So I that's why I think they're unappealing to free agent hitters and why they have such a hard time attracting hitters there, which is sad because I agree with you guys. I would love to see the Mariners be great, especially with that rotation they have. That's just
They're wasting some
filthy.
pitching. Yeah.
Speaking of pitching,
We're
Joe,
on to
you're up.
Joseph.
Speaking of segues, so we got two more free agents we're going to talk about here. One we know a lot about, one we don't know anything about. I'll let you decide
Aaron,
which one that
Aaron's
is.
followed his whole career.
Mm-hmm.
Aaron
From the
flew
age
several
of- from
times
the
over
age
to
of one.
And we
Japan.
go get him.
Aaron actually learned to speak fluent Japanese to be able to report on this guy. Go ahead, Aaron. Not even gonna try.
Nope.
All right,
That's how you
so
get canceled.
the first
That's a
guy,
good call.
I can barely speak the English.
he so I like about 7 players in the MLB. I like this guy. He's one of them. He's been solid, good track
Write it down,
record.
Jared. Add him to the list.
Got traded from Milwaukee, thankfully. Thankfully, he got traded from Milwaukee because that made them so bad last year. Oh, wait, no, they still won the Central by 50 games. Anyway, we're talking about Corbin Burns. He's a free agent, about to get paid. Apparently, Baltimore's not in on him. So, where do we think he's going to go? I mean, there's less than 10 teams that's going to pay this guy, right? I don't know. You all tell me. Aaron, where do you think he's going to go?
You're not going to give yours first?
Nope.
Okay.
Still figuring that out.
I got to go to the Giants, and so does Corey, which is scary when Corey and I agree on something. That doesn't happen hardly at all. But I think the
Prove us wrong.
Giants,
Go ahead.
Giants are pushing all in. I don't know why, because they're still third place by a long shot. But you have him and Webb and Harrison top of your rotation with a pretty good position core and some prospects coming. That could be fun to watch. I think they got money to spend.
Luke?
I agree. I think he's going to the Giants. He's from he went to school in the Bay Area. I think I heard this
Little
morning.
insider info.
I think
Oh,
it was St. Mary's or he went somewhere out there on the West Coast. He has a house in Arizona. I think he wants
What's
to
the
go.
address?
What is the
Um,
address?
Hey, I just listened to Ken Rosenthal, so he tells me all these things.
Thanks,
But
Ken. I know you're listening.
um, yeah, it just makes sense. There's probably 2 teams right now that are in the running. It's San Francisco and Toronto. And again, just like you said earlier, Joe, I don't think anybody wants to go to Toronto right now. So it makes sense that he wants to go out west. The Giants are going to give him the money he wants. And yeah, it's going to be probably similar to a Blake Snell deal where they've got an opt out a couple years in or a year in, and maybe they're right back in this place, in the next year or two. But somebody's going to take their money, and I think it's going to be Corbin Burns.
That's an interesting thought because Buster's there as a GM now. So
Mhm.
maybe they don't do opt outs. We don't know. Like we
That's
don't
true.
like
That's true.
like he gave Adamas a huge long term deal, no opt outs.
Mhm.
So maybe he's against that. And like
Well,
Toronto
he's
needs to
supposed to be
lock up
against
some of
platooning,
yeah.
which is
Toronto needs to lock
interesting.
up some of their young players if they want to attract free agents there. Like who's gonna go and then next year Vlad and Bo Bichette aren't there and
Yep.
so
Jay Lee, what do you think? What's your brain thinking
Um,
right now?
my brain is thinking that you're gonna hop on a plane to where you guys are saying. He just got done with that meeting in San Fran. He's gonna fly all the way across the country to the other coast. This team already made a deal for a pitcher in a trade with the White Sox. I think he's going to Boston, and I think they're gonna make a run at the AL East. They've been in the headlines with every big name that's been out there. They're bound to land someone, and I think Burns is the perfect Boston Red Sox pitcher.
well, if they listen to us and take Bregman, Santander, and Birds, then they better win the East. There's nobody left to play. I like it.
So, yeah, I forgot about the Giants. They always, I mean, they spend money and they seem like they're big dogs, but they're not Dodger big dogs, but they want to be Dodger big dogs. So they always throw their name in with every big signing. They always throw their name in with the big names, and they usually seem to come in second place on those, at least recently. Whether that's an East Coast team saying no, we'll keep Judge, or the Dodgers saying we'll keep everybody else. So I like that, and considering nothing else is spinning in my brain right now, um, and I know they got Adames. We talked about that last week. average player at best. I like that. Let's go. Let's go Corbett Burns, San Francisco. You're welcome, Cullen, our San Francisco correspondent. We'll
Yeah.
get him out there to you.
Man, our network is growing. We got correspondents
Yeah,
everywhere.
yeah.
At some point, and I think it's finally happened. Yes, the Giants are usually playing second fiddle to the Dodgers in free agency. The Dodgers have just run out of spots to put people that they sign. Like they have 6 free agents. They can't even re-sign Clayton Kershaw right now. So finally, the Giants might actually get to re-sign or get to sign a free agent. They've been trying for years to bring somebody in there.
Okay,
Keep on
on to our
trying.
next guy. And I researched him earlier, and I've
Looking
already
up his name.
forgot his first name. Roki
Roki.
Sasaki. Young dude coming over. Japan's taking over the world. Another guy coming from the NPB. What's that stand for, Aaron?
The Palm Professional Baseball League.
Your pronunciation was a little off, but that is correct.
Probably.
He's 23
I
years
got a
old.
cold.
Got a fastball, got a slider, got a splitter. What else do you need?
Nothing.
And apparently throws hard. I thought he was a small guy. I don't know why I thought he
He
was a
is
small
small.
guy.
Yeah.
I looked him. Well, he's 6'4", so
I thought he was smaller than that.
I mean, he looks like he weighs $130, but you
Yeah.
got them slinky arms that can. He
Swoop
throws heat.
2.0.
Yeah, something like that. And his worst year was actually last year, the 2 years previous when he was obviously even younger. You do age as you age, so pretty impressive stats, and we've seen some success of these guys coming over recently. So exciting. I'll let Aaron explain why he's not going to be super expensive because I don't exactly know those details, and you can explain that better than me. But he's not going to be super expensive, so there's kind of excitement of, hey, maybe everybody can be in on him. When we really know he's going to sign with the Dodgers, but he's not going to be super expensive. But go ahead, Aaron.
Yeah, if these Asian League players come over before they're 25, they count as amateurs, which then teams have to use their international pool money to purchase them. So it's just like signing a 16-year-old kid out of Dominican Republic, whatever. Everybody starts with like 5.7 million, I think, but you can trade some of those allotments off. So everybody's going to have roughly 5 to 8 million money to spend on him. You can give it all to one player. Most teams like to diversify that across multiple players, but it's very rare when somebody at this age that is a proven commodity comes over. Usually you're spreading that over 16 and 17-year-old kids, not a 23-year-old all-star from Japan. The last player to do it was Shohei. And if you remember Shohei,
Flamed out.
Yeah, that worked out
Not a good player.
fantastic. So it's not so much who can bid the most, it's who can provide a market for him. Typically, West Coast teams tend to do better in these types of signings because it's closer to Japan as far as like TV times go. So yeah, you got to look at other stuff besides just straight dollars for this guy.
Do you know if there is there a max age on, like you say you have to be 25 to get the fat deal? Does that shut off again at an age?
No, if they're free agent in Nippon, the NPB, they can just sign with anybody. If they're
Which is what the
currently,
Orioles just did, right? They just
yeah, they
got
just
a
signed somebody.
35-year-old starter
Yeah, they just
for
signed one
like
of the older
13 million.
guys. Yeah, who's been a Cy Young winner in his
Mhm.
past, or whatever they call it. I can't say that word. But yeah, if they're on a roster, then they get posted, and that happens frequently, where the team also gets paid to give
Well,
him up.
Aaron, I know you've put thought into this. Where do you think he's going to land at?
Corey has him going to Baltimore. I think I got him going to Seattle. Seattle's had a good run, starting with Ichiro and then Kikuchi. He's going to make his money off of marketing. Like he's going to make the league minimum. So he's got to go someplace. I don't think he goes to LA and is in Yamamoto's shadow. I don't think he goes to New York, is in Senga's shadow. I think if he goes to Seattle, Seattle already has great connections with their ties through Ichiro to that market. and then that allows the Mariners to then ship out one of their current pitchers to improve their offense. And so I think it's a two-way street for Seattle. They get Roki and then trade for a bat.
Okay. Luke, what are you thinking?
I think it's between the Dodgers and the Padres. I would love for him to go to the Cubs because they have two Japanese stars in Imanaga and Suzuki. It's not going to happen. I I think it apparently he idolizes you, Darvish. So to be able to be in the same rotation with him for a year or two, maybe he takes that opportunity, and then after Darvish retires, he's kind of got the corner on the Japanese market in San Diego, as opposed to like Aaron was saying, sharing things with Otani and Yamamoto in LA. But yeah, so I'll go with the Padres. And again, that frees them up to be able to deal cease for whatever they want, like they did with Soto, and getting a pretty good return there and staying, yeah, a playoff contender.
Jay Lee, give us your thoughts.
Um, I read and tell
Yeah,
me if
read.
you guys think this is true or not. I know, so that's why it was in a picture book. I put it together though. Um, I read that he's actually not a fan of like the spotlight. Like he's shy and that he doesn't want all this like insane
Insider info dropping.
insane national attention. So like I think just the pressure of like being that young and you know, you're about to probably be the next biggest thing since Shohei. Like those are big shoes to fill. So maybe he's looking at something like that. I don't know if all that's true or not.
So
That could
Pittsburgh,
be
all right.
So he's
that could
going to
be
the
completely
Sacramento A's, right?
correct. Sign him up.
That'd be sweet.
Only 14,000 people will be there.
That could
Max,
be
that's it.
that could be a huge ploy for all of these smaller markets to dump their whole pool
Right.
into him, right? But I mean, I would love to see him not go to like a bigger market, and because I think he's going to be pretty solid. Like I really do. So that's why I picked a team who kind of has a decent rotation already, still on the West Coast, not quite that big of a name of team, but I picked Arizona.
Solid. I could see it.
Don't ask me why. That's just what I was
Why?
thinking. If going off of that knowledge, if it's true, I think Arizona could be a perfect fit. He's still close to the West Coast, so he still's got that market from Japan. He's going into a rotation with Gallen. I think Montgomery has a better year than he did. Like I do. I don't
Dynamic
think he's an.
1-2 punch there, Sasaki and Montgomery.
I
Is
said
there
Gallen.
any way that Montgomery opens the year in
No.
Arizona?
He's going to end up with the Athletics. That's how the Athletics bump their payroll, is by taking on Montgomery's and hoping he rebounds so they can ship him out.
That's a good idea.
I wonder if Merrill Kelly and Roki Sasaki, we always tend to think that these connections help. Maybe they don't. But Merrill Kelly fixed his career by going to Japan for a few years and then coming back to Arizona. So I wonder if
So,
they're buddies.
Jay Lee, yeah, I like you throwing in Arizona. As I click on their page, who do you think's their all-time WAR leader? Make it fast, Jay Lee.
Right now,
Okay, Luke, you go. Who do you think's Arizona's all-time WAR leader?
Ooh,
5, 4, 3, 2.
Luis Gonzalez. I don't know. That's
Tony
definitely not.
Womack.
He's
Randy
4.
Johnson.
Randy Johnson. Good job, Jay Lee. So as I think about this guy, I think of all West Coast teams. I don't think he's going to go anywhere farther east, stay out west with Joe West. And they all it seems like they'll have to squeeze him into a spot. See, like you say, I think Seattle would have to trade somebody. I think San Diego would have to trade somebody. Do you have to trade somebody? No, not really, but somebody probably gets hurt. You can squeeze them in. But even the Dodgers, I mean, they have guys with spaghetti noodles as arms that break. So they have enough starters, but are any of them healthy enough to be there? But I still think he signs with the Dodgers. Maybe that's a homer pick, but maybe he wants.
Safe pick.
It's a safe pick. Yeah, that's me, Mr. Safe.
Mr. Vanilla. All righty. Well, I like all that talk. I think everybody had good answers except for Joe. And we'll wait and see how the next couple
Fair.
months
We
play
will
out.
wait and see, and I will kill a
You
crow
will, I
and,
will?
and I'll mail it to you, and you can eat it on the air.
A what? What are you going to mail
On
me?
air.
What are you going to mail
Crow.
me?
A crow.
A
A
crow.
Oh, it was kept cutting out. I
You
couldn't
can
hear. Okay,
eat crow. I got it. I got it.
I got you. I got you. I know your hunting skills. You wouldn't be able to get one anyway. All righty, guys. Well, thank you, Luke, the Cubby correspondent, for filling in
Luke.
for
Thanks,
us and
Luke.
giving us
You're the
some
man.
inside info on
Glad to be
the
here.
Cubby Bears. We're
Anytime
going
you
to.
want to, anytime you want to come on, Corey probably won't be here.
Smarter than Corey, better looking than Corey, more
Taller
tough
than
knowledge
Corey.
than Corey.
Yeah,
taller
Corey's
than
like 3'8". Luke's at least 6'5", so it's a little bit. He could fill those shoes and then some. We're good. Corey, we miss you. Hope you can make it next week.
Yeah.
We're gonna call this a pod episode, but we're gonna be posting another Immaculate Grid too, because we're so good at Immaculate Grid. So I know our viewers are dying for round 2 of that gloriousness that was Jose Reyes.
We won't let Aaron speak very much.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll do the typing. I won't give any answers. Luke, I was hoping Luke would be able to stay on, but he's got to go because Luke would.
I'll stay on. I'll do that.
Oh,
with you.
peer pressure.
Oh.
We just got told by
He's
his
gonna
wife.
be good at this, I can tell.
Yeah. Luke pulls out people that
He just got
your grandpa
grounded.
doesn't even know. Yeah, he's got grounded. He's gonna sleep on that couch right there. All right, guys. Until next time, don't forget to
Rake
your
position.
Way too fast.
That's fine. We're never on beat I still can't believe we didn't record that. That's hilarious.
I still didn't record. That's all right. That's
set it under an hour after we started.